I took your advice on meeting up with Marsau. So we sat down, we chatted a little bit. Yeah, man.
Was it like a
we came to
positive?
Very positive. You know, he tried to do a lot of talking, but I think that was the first time I ever out-talked him.
Oh, really?
Damn.
Really?
I out-talked him.
Did you have a drink?
I did not. He was over there trying to look pretty with a cigar. I was straight there just. He tried, but at the end, you know, we came to an agreement. We don't talk negative about each other, nor our significant others. So that's the agreement we got. You know, I mean, I guess as time progressed, we'll just see how the relationship builds, though. You know what I'm saying? Right. That's the agreement.
That's a hell of an agreement.
No, I mean it's doable.
But that's just between you and Marsau.
Right? I can see that.
Yeah.
Ariane and Letitia haven't talked.
They haven't. It's gonna.
Females are different.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey, it is. So my thing is, hopefully Marsau and I will be able to see eye to eye.
Eye to eye. Yes.
And if or when Tisha and Ariane do talk, if they do have their words, we're there to, you know,
diffuse the situation.
Yeah, diffuse it and calm them down, you know?
Yeah.
But that's good. Y'all did come to a happy medium, I would say.
Yeah, yeah.
So to hear that Martell has made up with the Scotts, it's very huge. I know because I've had my problems with them, and they all are stubborn as hell, even Martell. So for me, I'm pretty impressed.
The story today begins with something that many viewers did not expect to see happen this season. Because after years of tension, arguments, accusations, and back-and-forth moments between Martell Holt and Marsau Scott, it finally looks like the two men sat down and had a real conversation that actually went somewhere. This moment is surprising not just because they talked, but because of the way Martell described it. He said that he actually out-talked Marsau, and anyone who has watched this show from the beginning knows that this is not something that happens often. Marsau is known for talking, debating, explaining, and trying to control the tone of every conversation he is in. So for Martell to say he out-talked him, and to say it with confidence, it already tells us how unusual that meeting must have felt. When Martell explained that he took advice to meet up with Marsau, he made it sound like it was not just a random moment. It sounded like he needed to clear the air, and maybe even needed to break the cycle of negativity that had been going on for years. Anyone who has watched these two men knows that their relationship has gone through ups and downs, but recently the downs were beginning to take over everything. There were moments when it looked like they would not come back from the things said about each other. The personal comments, the public arguments, and the emotional reactions that came with every disagreement. So hearing Martell say that he sat down with Marsau and that the talk was positive already sets the tone for something meaningful. Martell shared that during their sit-down, Marsau tried to do a lot of talking, which is not surprising. Marsau always comes into conversations ready to defend his point, explain his reasoning, and make sure his side is understood. But Martell said this time he was the one who out-talked him. He sounded almost shocked when he said it, like even he couldn't believe it. The tone in his voice made it clear that he was proud of himself for getting his points across without being shut down or talked over. It also shows that he came into the meeting prepared, calm, and focused, and that he actually wanted to get something done. Then, there was the moment he mentioned Marsau sitting there trying to look good with his cigar. It was a small detail, but it painted a full picture of the environment. On one side, Martell walked in ready to talk in a straightforward way. On the other side, Marsau came in with his usual confidence, relaxed and stylish, as if he was in control of the moment. But the way Martell described it makes it seem like the power was different this time. Martell said he did not have a drink and that he was just there as a friend, ready for a real conversation. That kind of energy is different from the heated defensive conversations we have seen in the past. What really stood out was when Martell said that at the end of the conversation, they came to an agreement. And not just a simple agreement, but a very specific one. They agreed not to talk negative about each other or about their significant others. That is a big deal, because a lot of the major issues between them came from personal comments. Comments about their marriages, their families, their choices, and their actions behind the scenes. Many times, the conflict became deeper because someone felt their spouse or partner was brought into a situation that they did not deserve to be dragged into. So for these two men to agree to keep things respectful and avoid talking negative about each other's partners is a huge step forward. Martell explained that this agreement was the starting point. It was the first step toward rebuilding something that used to exist between them. He sounded hopeful but realistic. He said that as time goes on, they will see how the relationship rebuilds, and that statement alone shows growth. There was no big promise, no dramatic everything is perfect, no false idea of instant peace. Instead, it was a simple, honest recognition that relationships take time and that rebuilding trust is not something that happens overnight. Then, the conversation shifted to the women. Martell pointed out that even though he and Marsau talked things out, Ariane and Letitia have not talked, and that creates a different layer of tension. He mentioned that females are different, and while that comment may have been simple, the truth behind it is clear. The history between the women is deeper, heavier, and more emotional because the situations involved feelings, loyalty, betrayal, and long-standing pain. Martell and Marsau can sit down and talk because for them, the issues were more about pride and personal conflict. But for the women, it involves wounds that are not easy to forget. Still, Martell said that he hoped he and Marsau could see eye to eye as time goes on, and that if the day ever comes when Tisha and Ariane talk, he and Marsau would be there to calm things down and prevent it from turning into something worse. That statement showed a level of responsibility that we do not always see from Martell. He was saying that he understands the dynamic, understands the emotions involved, and is willing to step in and prevent chaos if needed. That kind of awareness does not always happen in reality TV conversations, especially when the relationships behind those conversations have years of history. What made the moment even more meaningful was the reaction from the person listening to Martell. They said that hearing Martell made up with the Scotts was huge. They acknowledged that the Scotts are stubborn and that Martell is stubborn too. So seeing all of them come to a point of peace is impressive. And the truth is, it is impressive because stubborn people do not bend easily. Stubborn people do not shift their position just because someone talks to them. Stubborn people need time, honesty, and a clear reason to rebuild anything. For all of them to find a middle ground shows something important. It shows that maybe everyone is tired of the same cycle repeating itself. Now, when you take a moment to look at the bigger picture, you start to see why this conversation matters so much. The relationship between Martell and Marsau has always been complex. They were once close, then the tension between them built up over time. It started with small disagreements and slowly turned into deeper issues as their personal lives became part of the conflict. When one person felt attacked, they attacked back. When one person felt misunderstood, they held on to resentment. And when the women became involved, the conflict grew into something bigger than just two men disagreeing. For years, viewers have seen scenes where Martell and Marsau could not even talk without the conversation turning into arguments. There were moments when Martell felt like Marsau did not support him. There were moments when Marsau felt like Martell dragged him into issues he did not want to be part of. And there were moments when personal situations spilled into the show in ways that created long-lasting pain. This is why the scene where Martell explained their agreement feels so powerful. It is not just about two men talking. It is about two men finally deciding that some battles are not worth fighting anymore. When Martell described how he outtalked Marsau, he said it with a kind of surprise and even a hint of humor. But behind that small joke is a big truth. For Martell to outtalk Marsau, he had to be calm, focused, and firm in what he was saying. It means he walked into that conversation with purpose, And that is something viewers have wanted to see from him for a long time. Because when Martell speaks from emotion, things usually go wrong. But when he speaks from clarity, things actually move forward. The moment he mentioned Marsau trying to look good with his cigar added a layer of human detail to the scene. It showed the difference in how both men walked into that meeting. Marsau came in comfortable, confident, relaxed. Martell came in serious, ready to handle things. And the fact that Martell did not have a drink while talking also showed that he wanted to stay level-headed. He did not want emotions to get in the way. He wanted the talk to make sense. He wanted to make progress, and he wanted to leave the conversation knowing that something changed. Then, there is the part about not talking negative about each other or their partners. This agreement might sound simple, but in the world of love and marriage, Huntsville, it is a major shift. Because this show has been built on real issues, real emotions, real relationships, and real consequences. When cast members speak negative about each other's marriages or situations, it does not just stay on the show. It goes home with them. It affects their families. It affects their public lives. It affects how fans talk about them. So having an agreement like this means they are trying to protect their families from the constant cycle of negativity that the show can sometimes fuel. But as Martell admitted, the relationship rebuilding will take time. And that is the truth. Because peace is not something you create in one conversation. Peace is something you build through many decisions, many moments of restraint, many choices to communicate instead of react. And both men will have to make that choice again and again if they want this agreement to last. As the conversation shifted to the women, the truth became even more clear. The women's issues are not something that can be solved with a quick talk. The history between Arian and Letitia is not something that can be washed away in a single moment. It involves emotions, betrayal, hurt, and deep personal wounds. And as Martell said, if they ever do talk, he and Marsau will have to be there to make sure things do not explode. That moment alone shows how heavy that situation is. But the fact that Martell is even able to talk about it in a calm way shows growth. It shows that he is starting to look at things from a bigger perspective. He is not trying to defend everything. He is not trying to argue. He is not trying to push blame. He is simply acknowledging that things are complicated and that rebuilding peace takes time. And this is what makes this moment so powerful. For years, viewers have watched these men clash. And now, for the first time in a long time, they are showing that they can sit down, talk, and find a middle ground. It almost feels like a shift in the energy of the show itself. A shift from constant fighting to slow rebuilding. A shift from chaos to something that looks like maturity. This moment also highlights something important about human relationships. When pride gets in the way, relationships break down. When people stop listening, arguments never end. When people hold on to resentment instead of letting it go, things become heavier and harder to fix. But when someone finally decides to sit down and talk in a real way, the whole energy changes. Martell said he out-talked Marsau, but maybe what he really did was outgrow his old patterns long enough to show that he can communicate without chaos. Maybe the real meaning behind that statement is that he finally found his voice in a healthier way. And maybe Marsau was ready to listen because he also understood that the drama had gone on long enough. For viewers, this conversation is a reminder that no matter how messy relationships get, there is always a chance to rebuild if both people are willing to try. It does not matter how stubborn someone is. It does not matter how long the conflict lasted. It does not matter how many mistakes were made. What matters is whether people are willing to sit down, put the pride aside, and talk with honesty. This moment between Martell and Marsau is not perfect. It is not complete. It is not a full circle moment yet, but it is a beginning. And beginnings are powerful because they open the door for something new. As time goes on, viewers will see whether this agreement holds. They will see whether the men stay true to what they promised. They will see whether they continue to avoid speaking negative about each other. And they will see whether their relationship slowly becomes healthier. But no matter what happens next, the conversation they had marks a turning point. It shows that people who once clashed can find peace. It shows that stubborn people can soften. It shows that old wounds can begin to heal. And it shows that even in the middle of chaos, there is always a chance for change. The person listening to Martell was right. This was a huge moment, not because everything is suddenly perfect, but because it shows growth. It shows effort. It shows the willingness to try. And that is more than enough to make this story worth talking about.